Okay, so where did we leave off? We have added a result model. Let's remove this one. We added a result model to our memory game so that when we win the game, it pops up and it says, congratulations, you won. Your time was milliseconds. And then we have an OK button to close the model. Now what we want is to add two things to this model. We want it to show us the leaderboard. So the list of, I would say, 10 top people. And I also want to add a text box where you can write your name. And when you've written your name, you press OK, you save the score into the leaderboard. So where do we start? I think we can start with the model. So let's add that text box to it. We are also going to be stealing this text box from React Bootstrap. I think if you want to show me where I found it. So React Bootstrap has forms. Let's also say that's one feedback we received. Like, how do we plan our breaks? It's important for you guys to know when the next break is so that you can maybe plan some things at your home. But let's run until 2 o'clock and then we'll take a break, 5 or 10, we'll see. So forms, if you want to render a text box like this, you need to have a form. And inside it, you need to have a form control, like that. So I'm going to move this out. So inside our navigation, inside our result model, where do we want to place that text box? I would say inside the model body, but after our text. So somewhere here, we want to add in not model. Just a second. Okay. So you don't need to actually have the form tag around it, like we saw here. You can just add form control like that. So here I'm going to add form dot control. And I can have an auto closing tag like that. And in here, I need to give it some properties. It wants to have a type, a placeholder, and an on-change event. So it wants to have a type, and the type is just normal text. I think there are types like password, for example, then those will run .show. Type normal text, placeholder. That's what is shown inside the text box, inside the text box when no text is being shown. let's just say your name or your nickname or something like that. And then we have on change. And that is hard to say what it's going to be right now. But basically here we want to pass a function that will handle changes to the text that the user is doing. The user presses one or types in one letter. That's an on-change event firing. So the text has been changed. And a nice way to handle these changes is to have a state for our model where name is going to be the state variable. And every time somebody makes some change to this text, we update the name variable. All right. Now again, we create some state for this result model. You know how to do it. We need to first actually import use state here. Import React and within curly braces use state. Then we can create those state variables. And as the initial value for the name, we can just have null for even. That's nothing, or undefined. Okay, so on change should then be a function that calls set name. But on change, that's a function that takes something called event, change event. That's again the DOM API, standard HTML stuff. Event is the parameter, and then arrow, and then we call set name with event.target.value. That's the actual value that we pass. There. Okay, so we have this puzzle piece. Let us see if it renders. Right, I forgot something, as usual. Oh, Visual Studio Code has helped me with some weird import, but it's not what I want. I want form. Like that. Okay. NPM start. Oh, then I need to play the game. Now I can easily just say in the memory component, show model, use state true, just temporarily so that I see what it looks like right away. NPM start. I want to see that model having a text box. Memory, yes. First it tells me what my time was, then it tells me, then it wants my name, and then I can write something and press OK. Nothing will happen with this name yet, I just close the model. What I can add is, I can put this body text into a P tag for it to look a bit more pretty. Yeah, now there is some space between the paragraph and the text box. Next thing is I want to print the leaderboard in this model. And how should we do it from the perspective of result model? We're not gonna let result model communicate directly with Firebase through our utils. Because remember, in the utils file, we have a function leaderboard and it needs some parameters. It needs the game name, for example. And our result model, it doesn't know what game it shows the results for. It is a general component that is going to be reused for all of the games. So what we can do is we can give it a function called fetch leaderboard. And that's what it's going to call in order to get the leaderboard. So this is something that the parent component is going to provide. Do you remember us testing this fetch leaderboard function from utils? Do you remember that it is a promise and it takes some time to execute? So we can start this process, then it takes some second maybe. It normally takes a bit longer time the first time you fetch it, but then next times you do it, it's like has established some tunnel or whatever with the Firebase, and it's not, doesn't take so much time anymore. But anyway, so when we can start fetching this leaderboard, then we need to wait a little bit and then we will receive it. And the way things like this work often on websites is, you have seen it many times. You press some button like load results or whatever. And what normally happens on the screen, like if we need to wait before we get the results, a very common thing is that we show the user some spinner maybe, like, oh, wait, okay, now we have it. Or maybe it says loading, and then we have it. So like we press a button, we start some process, and then after some time, we get the results. That's a very common behavior on lots of websites. That's how it's gonna work here as well. So I'm gonna leave this for now, fetch leaderboard, and I'm gonna go into the memory component and write a fetch leaderboard function here. Maybe I'll move it to the helpers, I'm not sure yet. I can move it to the helpers. I'll go to memory helpers. And I'm gonna write export. If you have memory helpers, do it here. If you don't, do it underneath the on restart function. Export, have this keyword only if you are in the helpers, otherwise we don't need it. Function, fetch leaderboard. So we are gonna be calling utils fetch leaderboard. In order to make that work in the helpers, I also need an import. So I'm gonna steal the import from index.js. Import star as utils from up utils. You don't need to do that if you are in the index.js file. So fetch leaderboard. So we're going to be calling utils fetch leaderboard, and it needs a parameter that's the collection ID of my collection in the Firestore, and that's the memory string. If I do like this, then I'm just starting that asynchronous call. If I write return, then I return this promise. This is a promise, and I can call .then on it. Then. Now, I actually want my memory component to help my results model quite a lot with this leaderboard. I don't want to give an object, I don't want to give an array with score objects to my leaderboard. I want to give it just an array with simple text entries. An array with text entries, one text entry per row that the result model should display. So what I want to do here is I want to take that leaderboard object. Do you remember what it looks like? Looks like that. We have an array of objects that are score objects, and they have name, something, and time, ms, some number. That's one score object. And maybe there are more of them with some other name and some other time. That's the structure of this array that fetch leaderboard promises us. So if I write .then here, I pass a function with a parameter leaderboard, because this parameter is the return result of fetch leaderboard. So we are chaining things. The result of one promise is going into the next promise, and the parameter to the function here is the result of the previous call. Like streamlining something. First process is ready, result goes into second process. Second process is ready, the result goes into the third process. Like a factory. So what do we want to do with the leaderboard? We want, in this part, to return an array of strings instead of an array of objects. So remember, we have an array of objects, and I want to return an array of strings. For every object, we will create a string. For every object, we'll create a string. We'll transform every object into a string. What function can we use for that? We did it with cards a lot.
Can it be map?
Yes. The map function takes an array and it transforms every item in that array into a new item and returns a new array containing the result. Remember, we did 1, 2, 3 map with a function that multiplies by 2. 1, 2, 3 is the in data. The out data is 2, 4, 6. Remember we did this? Ah, 1, 2, 3 dot map, a function that takes x, returns x times 2. We get 2, 4, 6. Get a new array with this function being applied to each of the elements. Now we want an array of objects. We want to map over it and return an array of strings. So we're going to now define this mapping function. So leaderboard arrow leaderboard.map, and then inside here we're gonna pass a function that processes each score object in the array. An object looking like this, name and time MS. So I'm gonna call it just score. What do we do with a score? We want to return a string representing this score. So we want to return something like, are you guys familiar with string templates in JavaScript? So you can build a string by saying this plus this plus this plus this. We've done that. But you can also use a nicer syntax for it called, yeah, what did I just say? The string templates. So I'm gonna create a little template here. And for that, I need some funny apostrophes. It's not really apostrophes, it's these ones, they're looking to the left. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna paste them in the chat so that you guys can copy them if you can find them on the, so in between those two, we're gonna write stuff now. On my keyboard, it is the button on the left of the backspace, and I use it by pressing Shift and then pressing the button. Okay, so inside here, I can just type a normal string, then it's gonna come out as a string. But if I wanna insert some variables into it, then I write $ curly braces. And then inside the curly braces, I can type a variable. So my score entries, I wanna say name, time, MS, and then milliseconds. So I wanna say score.name, and then outside outside everything that is within curly braces, comes a normal string. And then I can insert one more thing like that. So I like this much more than using plus. So we're gonna have score name, score.time, milliseconds, and then MS at the end. That's what we're gonna have. We can also give every entry a number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And did you know that the map function can actually take another kind of function as a parameter? Very, very handy. So map function, you can see it kind of as a for loop. And in the for loop, we often have variable I as the index. We can often use that. In the map function, you can, as the parameter here, write score, I, and I will hold the index of each element. And then I can use this index. I'm gonna copy this dollar thingy here again. So I'm gonna use, and I'm gonna write a dot here. So take a look at this. So this will be my number. This then name and then time MS. This number I don't want to start with the 0. That's what I starts with. I want to start with 1. Computers count from 0, people from 1. So in order to fix that, I'm typing I plus 1. Then I'm gonna start from 1 and not 0. There. So what does this function now do? It returns a promise because we write return utils.fetch leaderboard, then do this. and we're returning this. So you can pass it to the leaderboard model. So let's go and give our result model the result of this fetch leaderboard function. The way we do this is we go to index.js. We go to index.js, we go to where result model is being rendered. And now since it wants a new prop called fetch leaderboard, we are gonna provide it fetch leaderboard equals. Now we can just reference this function that we have just written, and it lives in the utils file. So in the helpers file. Or if it doesn't, if you defined it just up here, then you don't need to write helpers in front, like me, helpers dot, and then fetch leaderboard. If you have the function in this file, have it like that, just fetch leaderboard. No parentheses after, because we're not calling this when rendering. We're just passing the function reference. Now, how do we make this work in the result model? It is not using this function yet, right? Okay, go to the result model. Now, quite interesting problem here. So if we call fetch leaderboard, it's a promise, right? So we started, then we wait a little bit, and then we receive an array of strings that we want to show in the leaderboard. What we can do then is when result model renders for the first time, we can show to the user text saying loading leaderboard. Once we have fetched it, once we have received it, we replace this text with the leaderboard itself. It's a very, very important, very commonly used functionality in web development. Show a spinner while we're loading, or show some loading text while we're loading. Replace this when we're done. All right. What we can use to implement this is our use effect. Again, becoming our friend, I would say. But first, let's add a state variable for the leaderboard. Our variable name will be leaderboard. We create a state variable. And we give it an initial value of null as well. We don't have any at first. So what we can then do, if we look at the rendering of our model body, where do we want the leaderboard? I want it under the body text. So I want the text first to say your score was Then I want the leaderboard to be printed, and then I want my text box to be shown. Maybe you want it to be in a different order. Maybe you want the score to be printed, and then right under it, it would say your name. I think it's quite logical to show it like that as well. Then you can place your the code that I'm going to write now under the form control. Doesn't matter, either before form control or after. I'm gonna place it before. So what we wanna do is, we wanna take this leaderboard variable, that is our state variable, and it's gonna be an array of strings. And now I wanna transform each string into a P element, so a paragraph element. For every string, I want to display a P element. What function can I use for that?
Map.
So just recently we're transforming score objects into strings. Now we're transforming strings into HTML elements, namely P element. So we're gonna write leaderboard, within the curly braces, since it's JavaScript code, leaderboard dot map, and then I can say entry is my variable, arrow P, and inside the P I'll just have the entry text. Since I'm inside HTML, I need curly braces again, entry. But I only want to do this if I actually have a leaderboard. Maybe it's null, maybe it's nothing. And I want to render something else if leaderboard is null. So I can do it simply like this. Create some more curly braces at the top of this and say not leaderboard. Not null is true. If we don't have any leaderboard, then render some text like loading a leaderboard. And that you can do by writing end. Not leaderboard, which is true. And then you write end, and then you will give it some something to render. If leaderboard is false, we're not gonna render this part. This is also, yeah. You could use some if statements maybe. This is the shortest way to write this. And since this is a common thing to do inside React, inside JSX, this is how I'm showing this to you. So not leaderboard and a paragraph with the text loading leaderboard. And then in the next section, we say leaderboard, if we have it, and leaderboard.map something. Okay, one thing I forgot here is we have many entries and we are rendering a lot of P elements. What are we missing inside here?
Key.
Yes, a key. I like this. And what can the key be? Let's add an I here to our map. Map entry and I, dot I. Then we can use I as the key. There. Now we have the rendering part. We have the state part. We're still not using fetch leaderboard because our leaderboard variable is gonna be null all the time. We're not using set leaderboard. We are gonna use effect. So after use state import, use effect. after our state variables name and leaderboard, whole use effect function. And it's going to fetch our leaderboard. I pass first a function to it, and then I pass the dependency array. And this one is maybe tricky, like when should we do it? I think in order to make sure everything works well, we can use the show. If it's shown, then run this effect and show the leaderboard. That way, it will be reloaded. The leaderboard will be reloaded every time show changes. And we only want to load it when show is true. So this is quite a common pattern now, right? We have a dependency array with some variable, and then inside here we have if some state, some value of this variable. We had this pattern for our win variable and for our game over. We want to do something when this variable changes to true, and we don't want to ever do anything when it's false. So if show, then we can say set, we start with fetch leaderboard. That's our promise. Fetch leaderboard. We call it. And then when it's done, we say then we call set leaderboard. So I'm just gonna create a small L variable here, and then arrow set leaderboard L. Remember what I told you about passing a function that looks like this. It has a parameter here. It has a parameter here. They are the same. There's no point in writing it like that when we can just point out what function we want to call without any parameters, like that. All right. If show fetch leaderboard, then somebody's going to hide it. This effect is going to run again, but we're not going to enter the if statement. Somebody shows it again, and we fetch the leaderboard again from the database, set it to update our state, and then it will be re-rendered here. So let's see how this works. I think we are done with this part. Oh, wow. So I have that when my memory component renders, I'm going to close it. So when my memory component renders, I set result show model to true. This is just for testing. I want to see what my leaderboard contains right away without playing the game, right? So I'm going to press now F5 to refresh my page. What's going to happen then is my memory component is going to be reborn with all the initial state being initialized. And my show model is going to be true. This is just for testing purposes. And the model will appear. It will first render like this. There is no leaderboard, so it will show loading leaderboard text. Right after it has rendered, the use effect function, this one, will run. And it will look, oh, what's the show value? it's true, okay, I'm gonna fetch leaderboard, and when it's done, when it's fetched, I'm gonna call the set leaderboard function to update this state. Once the state has updated, what happens when the state is updated? What happens to the component when the state is updated?
It renders?
It renders. We can say it re-renders. It was rendered before, state changes, it re-renders again. So leaderboard's value changes, this component should re-render, but now there's not going to be anything here because leaderboard will be something. So this not leaderboard won't be true anymore. Leaderboard is kind of like the true value now. So leaderboard and then we render this. Okay, refresh. Let's all now see if I have this loading leaderboard text first before the leaderboard actually loads. I have no idea how fast it's gonna be. It can just blink and show right away. We'll see. Reload. Oh, I saw it for like half a second. So these are all those times that I played memory and had my name hard-coded into saving the leaderboard. Those two entries are my dummy entries that I created in Firebase. Is this working for you? Yeah? Does it make you happy? It's not working for everybody, but that's okay. Maybe this was too fast for somebody. It's completely fine. Maybe Clara can help you in the chat or in the separate info. I see that I have 11 elements here, and it's not something I wanted. This is an easy fix. Let's go to utils, JS. Let's look at our fetch leaderboard function. And after order by time MS ascending, just add dot limit 10. I want to limit this query to the 10 first elements only. I'm going to save this now and we'll see if it reloads. Yes, it reloads and I have 10. That's nice. Another thing I want to fix in my fetch leaderboard, that's the last thing before we take a break and then we do the save leaderboard part. And we already have this, so we're just gonna need to call that save leaderboard function, save score function that's down there. So what I wanna do here is, you see that this fetch leaderboard function that is supposed to be a common one for the whole application, it is ordering my score by time milliseconds ascending. You see it's a problem, right? Do you remember what we said about snake? The snake scores, if we come to that, the snake scores should be first ordered by the score descending and then by time ascending. So what we could do is we could give this fetch leaderboard a parameter, how we want to sort our collection, by what values. So I'm gonna add a parameter here and I'll call it order by. And order by is an array containing sorting instructions like this. So my first instruction is going to be an array, and I'm going to tell you how the snake should work. Snake should have score descending, and then I'm going to add another array inside this array, time ms ascending, like that. So I want to say that order by here, I'm going to expect an array like this. Then what I need to do is to change this code a bit. And I'm gonna do like this. This long line here, I'm gonna put inside curly braces because I wanna do more stuff. First, I wanna save this part. Then for every element in the order by array, first I want to say DB collection game in a variable. Then I want to, for every element in order by, here's one element score descending, here's another element time ascending. So for every element in it, I want to call this order by function with the elements values. And then I want to go further with my life. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save DB collection game in a variable. I'll call it query. There, saved on the first line. And then I'm going to be changing this query every time I call order by. That's why I'm using let. And then I'm going to write order by dot for each. That's also a function on arrays. I want to do something for each element in the array. It's kind of like writing a for loop, but it's a function instead. So order by for each. And then I take one object like this, and let's call it a rule. One array like this. This is a sorting rule or order by rule. So for each, I pass a function. What do I want to do with each of the rules? Rule, a row. I open curly braces. Inside, I want to take my query, and I'm going to save a new version of it here. I'm going to take the old query, and I'm going to call order by query order by this rule. And now I can write like this, rule 0, rule 1. But do you remember that spread syntax I showed you, ... So spread syntax is removing the array container from my array. So I can actually rewrite this in a much fancier way by just saying ... rule. Like unwrap this array and send all of its things as variables to my function. Quite cool, I think. And then I want to return. I still have my query, and I want to return it limited by 10. And then at the end, I called get. There, done. I'm done with this fetch leaderboard. Only thing I have left is, so here is the function. This is the change that I have just made. Fetch leaderboard. Now, when I call this function in helpers or in a memory component just before return, where I pass memory as parameter, I'm also gonna pass, I wanna sort memory. And it's an array of time ms ascending. There. Now I'm happy. Now you guys can take a break. Let's take 5 minutes. So the last thing we're gonna do is we are gonna save to the leaderboard. And for that, we have a function here, and it wants a score. Yeah, it wants the game name, basically, so memory, and it wants a score object. So an object like this, name and time ms. This is not so much work. So what we want to do is we want from our result model to be able to call this save score function. Result model has the name of the player, but it doesn't know the score. It only has the name. It doesn't know elapsed time or anything like that. So what our result model is gonna do is it's gonna call a function that the parent component provides, so memory component. So it's like this, result model knows the name of the player. The memory component knows the score, but doesn't know the name. So it's like we're gonna assemble this score object using two different components. Result model, because it knows the name, and memory, because it knows the score, the time ms. So let's write a helper function here. Call it function save score. But this helpers file, it doesn't know the time either. So what it can do is just, it can pass to create the object out of the name and time ms. So let's do that. Function save score takes name and time ms. And what it does is, and we'll just, so we can return the promise. Save score is a promise. That's more like if we want to do stuff with it. Like save score and then do something. But I think here we can just call it and that's it. It will print if something went wrong in the console here. So we go and say utils dot save score. And then we need to pass the game name and the score object. The game name is memory. And the score object we're going to create right in place here. The score object has a name, and that's name. And it has time ms, that's time ms. Do you guys know how to write this in a simpler way?
Just name, or which part do you mean?
Yeah, this object.
Can't we just have name, comma, time ms?
Exactly, because our variable names are called the same way as the keys. That's our save score function. It almost doesn't do anything extra except for saying, oh, that's the memory collection we want to add that object to. All right. Now let's tie it all together. So we are in the helpers. What if we go to the memory component? How should we pass this function to result model? Through, what do we call these things? Show, handle, close, header, body, fetch, leaderboard, and we're gonna create another parop, right? So we're gonna give save score as a property to result model. It's a function. And I want this function to be a function that just takes a name. It's the memory component that has the elapsed time, but not the result model. Let's see how the result model wants to use this. The result model, it has an on-click function in handle close. It has an on-click function that just calls handle close. It just closes. We want to expand this. So let's say that on-click is a function, doesn't take any parameters. Open the curly braces. Call that handle close. So parenthesis there. It's a double curly brace at the end. Yeah, like that. But before we call handle close, we want to call save score with a name, because that's what we have. So when we click OK, we want to save score with a specific name, and that's it. But we only want to do it if the name is not empty. So if somebody plays the game, the model opens, and they don't write anything in the text box, then we don't want to save it, right? Don't want to save that score. So let's write an if statement. If name, save score name. This is how we want to use the function, but we don't have it in the result model yet. So we didn't say that we want it as a property in the result model file. Add it as a property to the result model file. try not to look at what I'm doing. So we added save score as a prop to result model by listing it in this object that we have as a parameter to the function result model. And we call save score if name is not empty on the on click of the button OK. Now go to index.js and make sure that we pass the right function here. What function do we have? We have the one that we have just written in helpers. That's what we want to use. So save score is going to be a function that takes a name and calls helpers save score name and elapsed time. And since we said this function takes name as parameter, that's what result model is going to send. Now it feels like we've been working with function. It's really been heavy lifting here at the end. We just want to tie it all up and make it work. And then we're done. And I think we are kind of there. I'm going to test my code now. I refresh. All right, I'm not running. npm start. I clicked memory, my model shows. It says your time was 0 milliseconds. And now I'm gonna do a bad thing. I'm gonna go and save that score in my leaderboard. I'm gonna call myself the winner. Okay. I have no idea what just happened. I'm not looking in the console, completely in the dark, but I know if I'm gonna refresh, it's gonna show me the new leaderboard and we'll see if the winner is taking the first spot with a score of 0. Yep, it worked. Great.
And when I click on mine, like after I've entered the name, the model isn't like, I don't know, I keep on clicking OK and then it looks like nothing's happening. And then when I refresh the board, then I see like my name like so many times.
Because you haven't closed it. In your result model, check what your on click looks like. You should first have if name save score underneath handle close. Yeah. All right.
And then we have to change the use state show model, the first, like the initial state to false, right?
Yeah, thank you. You said that instead of me. I just wanted to say that to everybody.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Don't be sorry. So yeah, I'm going to index.js And I'm going to the place where I defined my show model state. I'm setting it to false. And I'm gonna upload this code now to GitHub right away. And I'm gonna do an honorable thing and remove my 0 score from my Firebase. But now it works like this. After I have played the game, I save the score. In order to see that it's actually saved, I need to play it again. And then I will see my old entry. Let's take a 10 minutes break from here. Or 5 minutes, we had 5 minutes, just half an hour. Let's take 5 minutes break from here. And then we will do a quiz.